So we finally made it to the end of season 6. And I'm not going to make the joke about how long it took, because I make that joke every season.
I was pretty disappointed with this season overall, although I've been disappointed in general since season 4. I think we both agreed that the start of the season was a lot of not great episodes.
Even right with the first one of Time Zero.
Yeah, a disappointing conclusion to a long wait for that episode back in the day. Yeah, then you had Realm of Fear, which was a cool idea that didn't pan out.
We had a lot of cool ideas this season, but they weren't executed well or fleshed out.
I agree, there are a lot where if you just gave me a synopsis, I would have said that sounds cool.
But when you watch it, it just kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, I think of Starship Mine in particular, which seems to be one that a lot of people like, judging by our comments. And it's an idea that sounds like it could have been cool, but it really didn't work for me.
I think there were a lot of fun ideas this season, which was whatever, because there were so many cool episodes in past seasons that had a lot more substance. We've had more things like Chain of Command in the past, and I wish we had more here, but we're stuck with things like Rascals and Relics, and while they're sometimes memorable, they are not what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think of Fistful of Datas as one of those as well. I did feel like there were a few that were a little better, like Face of the Enemy I thought was pretty good, and surprisingly for a Troy episode.
Probably the only good one she's gonna get this whole show.
Yeah. Frame of Mind I thought was a better episode than usual for one of those where you're wondering what's real and what's really happening. And the last time we had one of those, it was Riker too. So he's had at least 2 of those now.
We had a somewhat better balance of episodes spread out among characters, but it is still Picard heavy. Riker had, surprisingly, 3 episodes with him as a focus, and Data, just as surprisingly, only had 2, whereas in the past it felt like Data had 12 per season. Beverly only had 1, and unfortunately I thought that one was terrible. That was Suspicions. They tried to recapture the cool Klingon stuff with Worf, but it wasn't as effective this time around. The Kahless thing was a cool idea, but that wasn't really focused on Worf himself.
And I think part of the reason those episodes weren't as good this season is because they didn't carry on from what happened before as much. They felt more like standalone ideas involving Worf.
Well, you just wait until for a few datas more.
Was that the only episode that Alexander was in, was A Fistful of Datas this season?
Maybe? What about Ro? She was in Rascals, but as a child. Does that count?
I guess. Maybe it had to do with Deep Space Nine starting, and the way they originally wanted to use Ro over there.
Maybe she was starting her blockbuster movie career. In all the movies that I can name right now that Michelle Forbes was in.
I mean, Half-Life 2 is nothing to sneeze at.
That's true. Picard had some memorable episodes that people remember fondly, like Starship Mine, we've already said, Tapestry, Lessons, which was another Picard romance episode that was over by the end of the episode. And I was kind of hoping Vash would show up again this season, because she seemed like a more staying romantic presence.
Yeah, I was really disappointed when she showed up in Deep Space Nine and didn't show up here. It was cool to see her there, at least, and to follow up on her hanging out with Q.
And Q even showed up in this season, and you would have thought Picard would say, hey, where's my girlfriend?
In terms of Tapestry, we never got a clear explanation as to whether it actually was Q or if it was all in Picard's head, so that's potentially still up in the air, I guess.
But True Q also happened.
Yeah, that's true. No pun intended.
That's lame.
Yeah, I did not do that on purpose. I'm not you.
Alright, I'm out of here. So like we said, Troy had Face of the Enemy, the only cool Troy episode we're probably ever going to get. She also had Man of the People, which was a rehash of Violations.
Even when they stuck her into Fistful of Datas, it felt like that was an opportunity to do something different with her. And they kind of did a little bit. You kind of saw her having fun, which you don't usually see, but it didn't amount to anything.
Data had The Quality of Life, which was an episode about are machines alive? But no, not Data. And Descent, where he again basically did whatever he wanted and nobody could stop him, and they all got screwed at the end.
Oh, there was also Birthright Part 1 with Data's Dreams.
Yeah, I kind of counted Birthright 1 and 2 as Worf episodes, because the dream thing didn't really go anywhere, and they never brought it up again.
Yeah, but it was still a Data-centric subplot.
Riker had Schisms,
Again, a really cool idea that just didn't quite reach what it should have, I think.
Yeah, it was about 0.02 microns off. He had Frame of Mind, which we've already talked about, and Second Chances, where we got double the trouble.
Which I thought did delve a bit more into Riker as a person, which is what we need.
Right. Geordi only got one episode, which unfortunately was a romance episode in the form of Aquiel.
Which I was okay with and you really didn't like.
He and Beverly have been pushed to the back of the cast.
No, I don't know if I would agree.
In terms of episode focus?
Yeah, but I feel like if anything, Beverly is more part of the main cast than she was in previous seasons. It seems like she's involved even at times when she maybe shouldn't really be.
Yeah, I remember you talking about her in The Chase, where most of your sentences were, Beverly, for some reason, does this. So is that good? Just having her do things that she shouldn't really be doing only to get her in there more? Shouldn't they find things she should be doing?
Yeah, I think there are enough opportunities to have her do stuff that make more sense for her character, but they don't really do that in the right way.
Yeah, they can't seem to figure those out, so they say, just have Beverly do this random thing. Worf had a Fistful of Datas, Birthright 1 and 2, and Rightful Heir. And we didn't have as many side character episodes as we've had in the past. We had Realm of Fear with Barclay, Relics with Scotty, True Q with Q and Amanda, Chain of Command 1, which I felt was centered a lot around Jellicoe, as well as Picard.
Yeah.
And Ship in a Bottle, which was Moriarty, a totally unexpected reappearance that turned out to be pretty cool.
But not as cool as I'd hoped.
And I thought we had some episodes that fit in the team category, like Time Zero Part 2, The Chase, and Timescape. It wasn't really focused around one person, unless you want to count Picard's really old hand. And this season, we had a bunch of episodes that showcased how their technology could solve practically every problem they ever have, but they just throw it away after 45 minutes. Just off the top of my head, Realm of Fear, Relics, Schisms, Rascals, Ship in a Bottle, Second Chances, and Timescape. They're basically walking around with the Infinity Gauntlet, but they're so stupid they don't realize it.
And given that this is 6 seasons into this show, I really wish the writers at some point would say, hey, we need to sit down and figure things out a little bit more. But it feels like they're really kind of making things up as they go along.
Even if they said at the end of these episodes, we've passed the information back to Starfleet, to the science inventor team, or something, you know? Just to say, someone's working on it, or at least looking at it.
It feels like they take too much of a one episode at a time approach.
And we don't see it, but they make logs about all their missions, right? Which does get sent back.
Yeah, that's true.
You would think Starfleet would research shit and pass it back out to all the ships and say, hey, did you know you can live forever?
And I think that approach is even more surprising given that we got multiple two-parters in this season. Last season we did have that two-parter with Spock, and even that was kind of a surprise because it wasn't a season finale. But this season we had Chain of Command and Birthright as 2 parts in the middle of the season. So it feels like they want to develop things more, but then as soon as those 2 parts are over, they kind of forget about that and go back to the standalone episodes that feel like they don't matter.
So guest characters this season, we had Mark Twain, we had Barclay twice, we had the Vulture.
The Vulture.
That's for Man of the People, it's taking Troy's youth. Scotty, the Clicky Bugs, Q, and Amanda.
And I hope she shows up at some point again, but I doubt that she will.
The Exocomps.
I hope they never show up again.
Cohagen. David Warner, who just died, earlier this year?
R.I.P.
What a bummer. Moriarty. The Thing.
Well, Aquiel, the character, is still alive. Again, I hope she shows up, but I doubt it'll ever happen.
Carolyn Seymour, the Romulan, but a different Romulan. A big rat. The Trilithium Trio. There were more than 3 of them, but it's not alliterative, so I'm going to say Trilithium Trio. The condescending pianist. That incompetent Topa.
The Romulan that contacted Picard in a positive way, who I'm sure will definitely never show up again.
They probably killed him after he made that transmission. The people on his own ship were like, what the hell are you doing? That 90s glass shattering effect. Dr. Sunshield, Clone Kalis, Yellow Riker, who I'm also surprised is still alive and around. He'll never show up again on this show, but I wonder what happened to him. The not Romulans, Stephen Hawking, Lore.
And the Borg.
Should we say the mention of Hugh?
Yeah, I really hope they go more into that when they get back to that.
We even got archival footage from that other episode. Picard had his Netflix. Oh, sorry. Not anymore. Picard had his Paramount Plus subscription up. Let's address that.
Paramount Plus is the single worst streaming service I have ever used in my life.
Agreed. It is a struggle to use. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an old man trying to use technology.
It literally does not function a lot of the time. I can try to play an episode and it just will not work. Almost every time I open up the app, I have to log into it again. Pretty much every possible problem you could think of is present. Subtitles come up in just completely weird ways, out of order, and they break the episode sometimes.
Are you paying for the ad-less version?
No.
Me neither.
At this point, there's no way I'd be willing to do that.
And ads are ads, whatever, but I'm getting hit by a flood of them. And the most frustrating part to me was when I would finish an episode as the credits were going and I wanted to skip back and check something in the episode, it wouldn't let me. It would say, no, you've passed this threshold. Even though the credits are still rolling, the whole episode isn't technically over yet. You cannot go back. You have to start the episode over again, which means you have to watch all of the ads again, which really frustrated me.
And even when I use completely free streaming services that are entirely ad-supported, those don't seem to have anywhere near as many ads as Paramount Plus does.
Very money-grubbing behavior. And you know what, Paramount? I don't know what your algorithms are telling you, but I already have toilet paper. Stop showing me toilet paper ads. I am sick and tired of those fucking bears. All, sticking their noses into each other's asses, being like, did you use Charmin? So, Paramount Plus, check it out. Really, it's not worth it. I dread having to go into that app to start watching shit.
Yes, that is the perfect word to use.
Favorite episode this season?
I know a lot of people would choose Chain of Command Part 2.
Saps.
And I did enjoy that one, but I'm actually going to go with Second Chances.
Interesting.
I thought it was a better character-focused episode than we usually get. It made more sense in terms of how the situation came about from the sci-fi side than these episodes usually do, and it actually stayed focused on the characters and their relationships to each other without really having to go into a world-ending thing to the degree that a lot of other episodes do. And even just the fact that Yellow Riker was still alive at the end, I thought was really cool. Knowing that they originally intended for him to stay on the ship, or at least they considered it, and replace Red Riker, I think maybe that's part of why the episode felt more developed, because they did feel like they were going to do something more with it. But regardless, I thought it made for a better episode than usual for that kind of thing. And I really liked it.
I went with Chain of Command Part 2, even though I just insulted the people who would say that. The episode had a lot of substance. I thought the acting was good. I thought David Warner's appearance and performance was really good. And the things happening on the ship were also part of the story. It didn't feel like that was just shoehorned in to remind us that those characters also existed. And we had another good guest performance by Ronnie Cox as Jellicoe. The only thing I was disappointed about was after the fact, Picard hasn't really brought it up. No one has really brought it up. Whereas when you had things like his assimilation by the Borg, that was brought up later because it was very traumatic.
I wrote down all of the scores that we gave to these episodes, and I note that you gave 4 episodes A-range scores, and I didn't do that for a single episode this season. I definitely felt as we were going through that you were enjoying this season a lot more than I was.
But I'm not arguing that it's better than past seasons.
Okay.
What about your least favorite episode this season?
I struggled with this, but I'm going to go with Timescape. A cool idea that if you had actual sci-fi writers writing it could have had so many different avenues to explore, but they went with the typical not really making sense, but still focusing the entire episode on that concept. It just ended up being kind of irritating to me.
So really not that the episode itself was bad, but just they dropped the ball so bad with such a good idea.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it was that good of an idea. It would have taken a lot of explanation to make it work. That's what frustrates me, is they put these ideas out there without really thinking them through, but then that's what the episode is, and it never really comes together in a way that makes sense.
I just think your vendetta against fruit will never end. I'm surprised you didn't give that episode an A+, because the fruit went rotten and bad.
Even the aliens that were kind of behind everything were just really dull and disappointing. What did you go with?
Suspicions, no question.
Okay, yeah, an episode that I gave a C+ to.
If you want to hear my reasoning, you can go watch that episode, because I'm pretty sure I talked about it for a good 45 minutes.
Yeah, my favorite Beverly-centric episode.
Well, it was the only Beverly-centric episode this season.
Yeah, but I mean my favorite of hers in general.
I know you're a big fan of Remember Me.
Only for those Poltergeist tie-ins.
I'm hoping Descent Part 2 is a strong start to Season 7, because it's the last season.
Yeah, and I feel like it could be, given that we're dealing with the Borg and with lore. We're kind of combining multiple, I guess you could call them background subplots, in one storyline. Which is interesting, because they don't really do that a lot. It's usually one thing at a time.
Right. And I'm hoping lore has actually saved an offspring of the crystalline entity. Seriously, I am hoping that the writers have held in their stable of ideas, the really good ones, that they're finally going to say, well, this is the last season, so we got to use those now. My fear is that while I'm in the transporter, some weird slugs are going to come at me. My fear is that they're going to continue what they did this season and say, oh, I have this fun idea, and that's it. That's the episode. Or say, I have this idea, but I just haven't figured out how to make it work, but it's now or never, so we're going to do it.
And if they know it's the final season, what I really hope they do is take all the characters, I mean, I guess this is asking for a lot, but take all the characters and their subplots and kind of bring them to satisfying conclusions. You know, have something happen with Worf where it feels like he's maybe come to terms with his Klingon background and where he fits in with everything. Throw some Alexander in there and have that kind of pay off in some way. I don't know how they would really do that with Data, but I feel like that's definitely something they could do there.
Have you never seen Pinocchio? It's pretty clear what they would do.
Even something with Q that kind of gets him and Picard set in a way where it feels like he's not just going to keep popping up in the rest of Picard's life and just annoy him.
What part of the trial never ends do you not understand? Having Beverly finally be prosecuted. Either that or have her team up with Dr. Psycho and just go perform weird autopsies on every species imaginable.
And I feel like even something like the Romulans, we need some kind of big thing with the Romulans.
Yeah, because we had that Romulan at the end of the chase open that door. Are they going to do anything with that?
What about Sela? We didn't see Sela this season.
She got neck pinched out of the show. Ro having some kind of closure to her arc, because when she showed up, it was a big deal.
Yeah, and she is, I think, a more interesting character than most of the main cast, but they don't do anything with her. Maybe something with Riker and Troy's relationship. Maybe some kind of follow-up to Second Chances.
They need a Troy clone.
I mean, Riker would be all over that.
Having Geordi find a stable, long-lasting relationship?
I thought you were going to say just giving up. We definitely need something with Guinan.
Yes.
She only showed up a couple of times this season, and she's still very nebulous as to her background.
And in the beginning, when she showed up, that was okay. But we've seen so many adventures and experiences with her, it doesn't work anymore to just say, well, she's just a mystery.
Yeah, it brings up more questions than anything at this point. I hope we get another Barclay episode that really utilizes his personality, because they haven't really done that lately.
And he kind of has the Wesley syndrome, where he figures things out, but they don't acknowledge it, either then or later.
Yeah, maybe he'll be the one in Descent Part 2 to stop the Borg.
Maybe he's just got a little remote control and he's been controlling Lore the whole time.
And I gotta say, I'm getting kind of tired of Data, the way they always talk about him being more human than he thinks, and just all the standard Data stuff. It feels like it's still the same as it was when the show started. It feels like he hasn't actually learned anything, even though there will be individual episodes where it seems like he does. As soon as you get to the next episode, it's just back to normal old Data. So I feel like they need to do something with that. And they might be doing that now that he seems to have emotions.
And if not, we got about, 7 movies to figure it out?
Yeah, that's true.
We are going to do the movies after the show, right?
Correct. I am looking forward to them.
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to the most important character on the show, who is the brains behind everything. Spot. Maybe we'll have a whole episode where Spot narrates what they're seeing and hearing and how they interpret it.
That could legitimately be interesting.
Riker comes in to feed Spot, and we just hear the narration. That stupid fat keeps coming in. Why can't he just mind his own business? I'm gonna attack that piece of shit.
I can already see my A grade popping up on the screen.
So we got one more season. Thanks for sticking around. If you've just jumped in,
Go watch all the other ones.
I was gonna say that, but I feel like the way we have done these has evolved and improved a lot over time.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
It is painful to try and go back and watch some of our earlier stuff. I think at the beginning we weren't really sure what we wanted to do. We were a lot more serious. We were like, oh, we can't put those jokes in. We have to maintain some form of integrity, which is ridiculous, obviously. So if you choose to go watch those earlier ones, thanks, but you don't have to. And I think it's wild that people leave comments and they're like, yeah, I watched your review from this episode of season 6 and now I'm going back to the beginning. I kind of want to be like, eh. So we'll knock out season 7 and then we'll hit the movies.
And then we'll see what happens after that.
So to be clear, we have neither confirmed nor denied we're doing Deep Space Nine.
No, I think we did say we're not doing Deep Space Nine when we did an update video.
I don't even watch those videos.
And even if we don't talk about every episode of Deep Space Nine, Nick has seen them before. I am going through them for the first time, and I am going to keep going. So I'm sure it'll come up, if nothing else, in our monthly wrap-up videos. Whenever I finish a season, I will talk about it. And so, Nick will give his thoughts as well for whatever he remembers from 25 years ago.
So stay tuned for our reviews of Deep Space Nine.